All right, guys, I just want to welcome back to the Gridiron Gurus podcast. Today, we're going to be taking a look at massive trade news in the NFL. The Rams unexpectedly make a significant splash for Browns defensive end Myles Garrett, one of the most skilled pass rushers in NFL history. He's only 30 years old, and he's got 125 career sacks to his name as a former number one pick. This is significant for LA, a team that was already favored to win the Super Bowl going into 2026. This is a team that had a lot of struggles on the defensive side of the ball last year, and even though they had a lot of very promising young players across the board, like Jared Verse, who Cleveland got in return, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, it's a collective group of young studs, but it just was not enough, and I think that they have made a big push to add some veterans here to really beef up this side of the ball, and that's what they've did this offseason is they traded for Garrett here. They spent a first-round pick in this 2026 draft on Trent McDuffie, who got a significant extension, and then Jalen Watson at the other cornerback spot also comes over from Kansas City. So this is a roster that's in very good standing. I think this is a trade that makes them ultra competitive on this side of the ball where they really struggled last year. Matt Stafford, who won the MVP, he took care of this team, right, against Carolina. They gave up 31 points on the road in a game they could have easily lost. In the conference championship against Seattle, Stafford has almost 400 yards, but they come up just shy in that one. And then in a game in late December, they ended up losing at overtime 38-37, where Stafford had 457. And again, the defense was just not able to come up with enough stops. And when you have an offense like this that is a consensus number one in the NFL, your defense should be able to make enough stops in this league to, win the Super Bowl, right? And the window was closing for them. It's been open for like 10 years, right? But with Stafford being an aging veteran at this point, he did just sign an extension, so he's got another year or two left. That leaves it open for, that extended period of time. And, we'll see what happens when he ultimately retires. But you're going to be the perennial favorite under Matt as long as he is around. They won Super Bowl with him at the helm already. They went to one with Jared Goff, and they come up just shy. So this has been a long time coming, and this philosophy has worked for the Rams when it comes to being able to trade away valuable assets for important pieces, and with this roster being in good standing because they've been able to draft very well during these last decade, really, in the later rounds, that they've been able to really build themselves a solid roster. Guys like Puka Nacua, the offensive line's loaded with guys like Alaric Jackson and Warren McClendon, and then the defensive side of the ball, I alluded to some of those guys earlier, but this is a roster that's in very good standing that allows them to be aggressive and continuously trade away these first-round picks. I think Myles Garrett obviously is going to bring a significant boost to this team. Last year, what was it, 22 sacks he put up, 23 that is. He's had 14 plus in 5 consecutive seasons. So this is a guy who's going to generate a significant amount of pressure, and this is a division that has some good offenses as well. We talked about the Seattle Seahawks, the San Francisco 49ers when they're fully healthy are definitely a threat. And just being in the NFC in general, you're going to face very tough opposition on a weekly basis, right? And with some of those younger cats around Garrett, they're certainly probably going to have improved play because of some of the tactics he's going to be able to bring to the table for them to learn and thrive off of. But at the same time, extra opportunities are now created because this is a player that's going to command a lot of double teams. He's going to create a lot of fiery energy off the edge. And that's significant, right? So I think overall this is a pretty good trade for the Rams. It's very unexpected, though. And again, we'll talk about the Browns here momentarily, but I think this makes a lot of sense for them. You're in good standing. You're able to do this. You're going to go down swinging. This is a team that's going to be up there competing for the Super Bowl here for the foreseeable future. So, they're going to continue to offload those draft picks in effort of bringing more championships home. And 2 trades this offseason for 2 players that are probably the best at their position, right? McDuffie, top 5, top 10 corner. Garrett, a top pass rusher. I love that, right? For them to be able to make these moves consistently. They're kind of treating it like a video game, right? This is kind of the stuff you do in Madden, but it's actually happening in real life, and it allows them to address some needs. I thought the pass rush was respectable last year, but, could definitely get better. And then the cornerbacks, they played fair, but they just weren't good enough, and that was definitely a big area of concern. And instead of drafting a young cat, to potentially fill the shoes of these guys, they went ahead and gambled on veterans, and they gave them a lot of money to do so. $180 million still due to Myles Garrett in cash. This is very cap friendly, though, because the way it's all structured and whatnot, they're only going to be charged about $8 million this upcoming season, and then 16 and 2027, and then 2028, $21 million. The final 2 years of this contract in 29 and 30 will be $40+ million cap hit. So for right now, this works out great, especially with Stafford getting an extension for $60 million. Puka Nacua is going to be due one as well. And then some of those younger guys that I alluded to on defense. So this makes a lot of sense, and it works out very well for the Rams. Moving to the other side of this trade, looking at the haul that the Cleveland Browns received, Jared Verse, former defensive rookie of the year, the lone guy that they picked in the first round, right, over the last 10 years outside of Ty just a couple of months ago, ended up being phenomenal. I thought he'd be defensive player of the year out of Florida State, and he was. And this is one of the younger guys in the league that's really, showcasing his attributes on a weekly basis at this position. He's been a phenomenal pass rusher for the Rams. Had 7.5 sacks this past year. He's a guy that's continuously improving. He started his career at UAlbany before going to FSU, so there's still a lot of untapped potential here for Jared Verse. He's 25 years old, probably another couple of seasons for the Browns before they have to give him an extension. So I think that's great that they can trade Garett away and replace him with a younger guy at the same position that's pretty good. Overall, I don't think this makes a whole lot of sense for them, even if you look at this haul of, a 27 first-round pick, a 2028 second-rounder, and a 2029 third-rounder. Now, this does allow them to have a lot of flexibility when it comes to the draft next year, where there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks available, right? And that's the one missing piece for Cleveland. They just have not been able to figure out their pass game. They got plenty of different options still in that room, from Deshaun Watson to a couple of second-year guys, and Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. But next year, if they want to move up into the top 5 in the draft, they should have no issue doing that with the capital that's available to them. And this is a team that's already had a lot of draft picks over the past couple of seasons. Andrew Berry really loading up for the Browns, and they're really filling out that roster. The defense has been exceptional. We'll see what kind of regressions potentially in store now that Garett is gone. I think this could definitely loom large for them. And even though the draft capital is certainly enticing, and again, it allows them to make other moves in the foreseeable future, we'll have to wait and see how these picks turn out. But I'm only going to give it a B+ for Cleveland because, again, this is a team that's really been loading up the last couple of years. This roster is really coming into good fortune. Todd Monken, a new head coach, should really help elevate this offense. Deep backfield, the receiving group's young and got some guys. And, of course, again, the defense in this division has just been monstrous over the last couple of years. And it's not like Garett has regressed at all. He's coming off his best career season, right? So to trade him at the peak of his career when he still has a lot to give for a couple of additional draft picks, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for them, especially since some of the rumors said 3 first-round draft picks were potentially going to be offered to Cleveland, and they didn't get anywhere close to that, right? Only receiving 1 in next year's draft, and it's going to be, outside the top 25 most likely because the Rams are going to be really good. So I give this an A for the Rams because it doesn't really hurt them a whole lot. And for the Browns, I think it potentially does more damage than it does good, but I still think it's respectable, so I'm going to give it a B+. They didn't get fleeced, as the young kids like to say, completely. But I don't think they should have did this. I think that Garett, this is a guy who a couple years ago did demand a trade before getting that extension, and it seemed like he was happy. I know he waived his no trade clause for this, but I don't believe he was in, the GM's office beating on the table to get traded. This is a team that's definitely on the upturn. And, I just don't think it was best for the for the Browns when it comes to their future. I felt like it would have been much better if they just held on to him, especially since Verse, even though his production did take a, tick up this past year, how much potential does he still have in him remains to be seen. I think he'll be a very good player, but he's not going to be able to give you, 15+ sacks on a yearly basis. So from that perspective, I think the Browns are the losers of this trade, and the Rams are big winners, as they're once again proving they should be the Super Bowl favorite next year, and it's going to be hard to defeat this team. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.